Hey everyone, welcome to the stage. Very, very happy to be here with Marlena Pellegrino. Welcome to the stage. Marlena and I got to know each other about a year ago in the heat of the pandemic, and we finally got the means to do a podcast. So, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So today we're going to talk a bit about everything. It's kind of the way it happened, like with first timers on the show, there's a brief intro and then we're going to go through a couple of things or two or three things that just having conversations with Marlena, like we went through different things and I thought, "Oh, this could be really interesting for students or people who are interested in being musicians or, creators." So basically, today we're going to go over a bit of being a proactive musician, what that's about, how you can aggressively chase your goals, be proactive and not wait things to just magically fall on your lap. Then we're going to talk a bit about website or social media presence, or if that's important, or if it's something that you should be thinking about doing. And then what are things that can maybe support musicians outside of the practice room? So maybe not things that are specifically related to music itself, but things that may provide benefits to just leading a healthy, balanced life as a musician. So without further ado, I'm going to throw the mic to Marlena here, and maybe she could tell us a bit about what she's doing right now, where she's from, and yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on, Riccardo. So a little bit about me. I'm currently principal viola in Thunder Bay. I've had the job since 2019. Throughout the pandemic, I've just been thinking a lot about what I can do from home.
Right.
What I can do to maximize my career potential and all of that. I'm by no means an expert at all, so I just preface that. But yeah, come to some realizations about what works for me, at least in the last couple years. So happy to talk about that and share
Yeah.
that.
It's amazing how this pandemic has, made us think about other stuff, especially musicians. Well, I mean, everyone. I think everyone has had like a moment where they think, okay, maybe I could do something else, or am I looking at this the right way? Like a lot of moments of reflection because there's a lot of like dead
Oh
time,
yeah,
right? So,
and we've had a lot of us have had a lot of time on our hands, and it's a weird thing to complain about. So I'm not going to complain about it, but it has its perks, right? You have a lot of time to think
mm-hmm.
because you're not working,
Yeah,
and a lot. It can be negative and positive, right? But I created a podcast this past year as well, so that's kind of one of the things we bonded on.
yeah.
And I've taken a bit of a hiatus from that for now, just because work got really busy. But I'm kind of rebranding and gonna start that up again pretty soon. So
Well, this is the first step. You're doing a podcast right now. So baby steps. One of my podcasts
exactly.
with Francois was like, take every chance. So maybe this will be like a stepping stone to get back in it. So yeah,
Also, I'm sorry if you hear my dog in the background. I'll try and minimize the
we
noise.
might introduce him later if he has an opinion, if he barks or something.
Yes,
What's your dog's name?
you know my dog's name.
I know, but people
Oscar.
don't. Oscar. Welcome Oscar to the stage.
Welcome, Oscar.
Yeah.
Okay, right now he's like pissed that there's a toy under the radiator.
Oh.
So let's hope he doesn't
Yeah, he's gonna have to
continue.
be a proactive
He's gonna
problem
have to be
solver
a
there. Yeah, we'll see if
proactive dog.
yeah,
Yeah.
if he learns from our tips and trips. Okay, so getting right into it, I'm gonna say what I think on these themes. Being a proactive musician, I love being proactive. I just love getting the bull by the horns. I don't even know if that's the way.
Taking the bull.
Yeah,
It's
whatever.
okay. You speak four languages. You have an excuse.
So, like if you want something and you have the drive and the energy and you're willing to put in the time to get it, I think all of us at some point in time, we need to be extremely proactive, a go-getter, like, okay, I really want this. What do I need to do? And especially trying different things. And a lot of this is going to be repeated stuff on my end because you guys know the way I think. Like, I think you want to try something new, try it for about like 1 to 2 weeks and try a lot of different things, maybe not too many, and then try it regularly and consistently, and then see what the outcome of that is. After 2 weeks, okay, what has that given me? So being proactive means a lot of different things. It could be, reaching to someone or something that you haven't necessarily tried in the past, using foresight to really think, okay, I know that that's going to be opening up. I should think about that and do that in advance. We're talking pretty vaguely, but let's say that there's going to be a job opening. Well, maybe before the job opening comes up, you might want to reach out to people that and see if you can get in touch with those people, so that when the job interview or job application comes, you already have a foot in the door. And that's being proactive. Another example for me is I knew that I always wanted to go this, with mics and recordings, and I did it before the pandemic. And then when, there was this whole like lack of equipment, when the pandemic came, I already had my equipment in place. I was already recording. So I was really proactive. I didn't wait till the last minute. So you have to be less of a procrastinator and really a go-getter. That's just my opinion. And that's, that's my 2 cents or 1 cent, whatever the dollar's worth. I don't know.
I have a lot of thoughts on procrastination, so remember to ask me that.
Yeah. So, you could add your thoughts on that, Madalena, and also like, what is your view of being a proactive person / musician, or just a proactive musician? Not, that.
Yeah. So, well, all of what you said makes a lot of sense. And I think you've taught me a lot too, just getting to know you. Like, I think you when I reached out to you, somehow we got to know each other at a time that was very, what's the word? There was a lot of momentum, personally. I'll just speak for myself. In my life, there's a lot of momentum. And connecting with you was really great for me for that. So where to begin? Oh, there's so many things. Okay, so being proactive. Okay, so I feel like this can be really, really, first off, I think it can be really, really difficult to be proactive, especially if you're a student or you're at the beginning of your career, because there's a lot of imposter syndrome. There's a lot of like confidence. If you haven't necessarily done the things, then how can you convince yourself that you deserve to have the things and you deserve to go for the things? So if the confidence level isn't there, it can be really hard. So I feel like you kind of have to push through that. Like I've noticed just since graduating and even when I was in school, a big thing is like push through that feeling of, if there's doubts in your mind or whatever, and we all have them, like push through that and just kind of go for it, even if it doesn't feel totally natural. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like when they say, what's the word? Like motivation isn't always the first thing that comes, right? Like sometimes you have to start and then you get the motivation after the fact, right? Like how often do we really feel super motivated? I don't know about you, but like, especially if you struggle with like any mental health things or like just life, it can be hard to be motivated. So sometimes you just have to start. There was a great cartoon I remember watching growing up called Getting Started. It was, I think from the Toronto Film Board. It was like my parents had taped this like compilation of the Toronto Film Board. Like the hockey sweater was one of them. There's all sorts of different cartoons just on this VHS. And one of them was Getting Started, and it was just this cartoon guy. It was like the whole day he was just trying to get started at practicing the piano. Right. And he was doing all these things to kind of avoid getting started. And once he was started, of course, it was, it just flowed. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like that, I think, for a lot of people. So I just want to acknowledge that it can be hard. And just to push through that. So like cold calling / cold emailing, which is probably more realistic. I think cold calling is probably antiquated at this point. Like I've never really called someone I don't know unless it's like a business. So I think it's a bit of a tall order to like suggest people just like call professors. But what I would say is cold emailing I've done a lot, or cold messaging, Whether it's somebody you look up to who you want to have a lesson with, that's huge, especially if they're, let's say you have an application coming up and, you want to play for somebody in that group or at that school. Don't just wait to see if it happens. Because the reality is if you've contacted the person in the past, they're much more likely to, know what it's like to work with you, and you're much more likely to be successful in your application.
And just so I can interrupt you there, like, also most of the time we think like, oh, okay, I'm going to reach out to that person and then there'll be a lesson like next week, or I can meet the person like very soon. No, like the person is likely very busy by the time they get the chance. Then, like if you were like, oh, I'm going to reach out to him next week. But then sometimes I think, no, I should reach out this week so that I can get an appointment in like a month. So that you don't realize,
reach out far in advance. And this is like, I'm hesitating to even phrase this as advice because I've not followed this advice a lot of times. I've missed deadlines. I'm not, like, I'm still learning this. Okay. But I have gotten a lot better at, do things in advance. Like, yes, they're going to be very busy. They might not have time. You might need to follow up. In fact, they might not get back to you the first time.
Yeah.
You might need to follow up with another email. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least you can like cross that off your list. Like, I did that. And then you can say, I did everything I possibly could to connect with this person.
Yeah.
Whether it's, and this could be, again, it could be someone you want to take a lesson with, play excerpts for, or whatever. Or it could be like a colleague like you. Like we met like one time, right? Before I messaged you, and it was, I guess it was, professional based, but it was more like, oh, hey, about studying in Germany and I don't know about that. So let's connect and maybe we can talk. And then of course we became friends, and, but like that, it can be people who are just colleagues,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've done that many times. And like, by the way, people are going to do that to you too. They're going to reach out to you and like, spread the love, pay it forward. Like, then it'll be your time to share what you know.
Right.
So word of mouth and talking to other artists is definitely one of the most powerful tools, I think.
Yeah. So to add on to that, and I sort of was all optimistic of it. I was like, yeah, motivated, like go for it. And it's true. Like what Marlena like brings up, it's actually hard. It can be quite overwhelming. So just, as a concluding point on this section, when I have struggled with it, I've asked someone to help me get through it. So I remember this one time I was struggling to schedule lessons. My goal was to schedule 3 lessons with 3 different professors in Germany. And I told my friend, I told myself, I'm not going to leave your house until I write these 3 emails. It was
Nice,
annoying
yeah.
for my friend, but like, he was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So like,
Keep you accountable.
yeah, like you need like, cause it's hard. Like, let's face it really is hard to like self-motivate. And if you've gotten to that point, great. I know I have my phases where I can go like really a long time, sort of as a self-starting whatever. I'm a self-starter and I get motivated quite easily. But that's not to say that I depend on other people and other things that sort of give me momentum and impulses. So last point, if you can have someone, maybe something to hold you accountable, that's great. I'm looking in front of my monitor and I have this Post-it staring in front of my face. And it's like the last thing I'm going to see before I leave my room. So it's like staring at me like, do this.
What does it say? Or no, you don't have to say it.
So like,
be better. Do better.
Clean
I have a
the room.
post-it on
No.
my mirror, so don't. I have a post-it on my mirror. It says "Do the work."
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah. So I think that wraps it up for this area. We'll sort of transition into social media. Now, my personal view on this is I'm not very present. Like, I have Facebook, and that's it. I don't have any Instas. I have a website.
As exhibited by the fact that you just said, I don't have any Instas.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't have Snapchat. I just have WhatsApp. If you want to reach me, just call me. Or write me an email. Uh,
Just cold call you.
yeah. I'm super open to that. At any rate, I think it's important. It has to be important for you to exhibit your identity and feel like you've got some legitimacy associated to your name. But I don't think it's the end all be all. I think you should, for me, I think it's really important before you even think of getting a social media presence to actually have a presence like just yourself, like,
IRL.
pardon?
IRL in real life.
Yeah, IRL. See, I have no idea.
Oh God.
God. But at any rate, like, just like be the best version of yourself IRL in real life, like
There
for
you go.
reals, and then whatever happens on social media is kind of an extension of who you really are. Like, I spoke about this with Francois the other day on my the podcast I did, which is actually on YouTube now. Since it was the anniversary podcast, it was on Monday.
Ooh.
At any rate, we were saying that if I did something online, it had to reflect me. So the podcast was never something like with a hidden agenda to get like subscribers or like, it was truly just to have more pleasant conversations in a different dynamic so that I can get, enjoyment out of them, and whoever was interested could listen in, and if they didn't, well, they didn't. So that's my take, which is maybe a little old school, but I like it. So
Mm-hmm.
take it or leave it.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that take. I think that there's great artists who are not on social media at all. There's artists who are partially on social media, like yourself. And then there's artists that are, super adept at managing the social media. I think there's probably no question that being in our world, and I'm not sure that this is a good thing at all, but I think that there is a strength to being able to use those tools. Like I even know someone like Raphael Wayworth Brown, who I did talk a lot to about this, is he's not the kind of guy that likes attention actually, and he's not the kind of guy that like super loves being online, but he's able to use those tools really really well, to his advantage for his career, and there's a strength to that. So if you're the kind of person that enjoys it or feels like they could enjoy it, go for it and, really get deep in. I don't super love it. I think so. Okay. What I've kind of realized in the last year or so is that I need to have a social media presence, but I also need to regulate how I use it. So it's super tricky, but I feel like so for me that meant, all right, so there's lots of facets to that. Um Having a website is super important. I do website admin for the symphony. That's my administrative job with the organization. So I update the website, I write the bios, I make sure that the concert listings are up to date and everything's running smoothly. Having a website might seem a bit antiquated to some people, like, oh, is that still necessary? And yes, I think it is. I think it's actually great. It's like one address that you can give people, even people who might not be familiar with social media, maybe from an older generation or people that just don't want to go on social media, just to have that one platform that's super professional and just kind of says, this is who I am, this is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then with things like Instagram, I don't do Twitter, but I have Instagram, I have Facebook. Just like streamlining it so that everything, I don't know, I've seen it more through the lens of like, if an employer saw this, would I like what they're seeing, right?
Okay.
So, yeah,
No, I was just sorry to interrupt, but
that's okay.
I was just curious to know, doing your website, because I know you did it yourself.
Yeah.
Did you gain anything from the process of doing that?
Oh, tons. Yeah. So this was my my first huge like pandemic project back in early, like the beginning of the pandemic. Maybe it was like April, I think. And it gave me something at that time really to work towards because I was feeling really lost and unmotivated and just kind of, yeah, lost. And I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to do this for a while. Now I have my days are completely free. I'm going to take this time to actually learn how to make a website. So, just for context, I was going from absolutely nothing. I'm not particularly techie. Okay. So, if I can do it, you can do it. Um, you just have to kind of enjoy it. I think like I got into this kind of flow state with like figuring out how to work Squarespace. And I really like designing things, so that helps. I really like photography, picking photos, editing photos. I like writing too. So those are all skills that come into play when you're sort of curating your website. I'm actually in the process of redoing it now, just kind of redesigning it a little bit. I needed
Cool.
a new look. Um, so yeah, so with social media, I think the tricky thing is that you have to be present and active on it if you're going to use it. So you have to be updating it and making sure that it's curated in a way that shows a version of yourself that you would be okay with potential employers
Yeah.
seeing. So this is just talking about it from like a professional angle, and that could be different for different people. I mean, if your brand, oh, and I freaking hate saying brand for human beings because it's just so cold and capitalist, but like,
Yeah.
you know, if your professional self is something that's more vulnerable or personal, or whatever your content is, that might mean different things to different people. You know, it's not going to be the same for everyone, so you kind of
Right.
have to just think about what do you want to
Yeah.
present.
I was just gonna say that, ultimately you use as required. So
Mm-hmm.
our versions, like as you guys see, like my website, what like Marlene and we have like two different ways of going about this. Not that one is better than another, and there might be thousands of different ways, but for me, like I think that the moral of the story is like use as required and as needed, and make sure it's coming from a sincere place and not just to be followed or just to get
Yeah.
presents for the sake of presents. Like
Well,
there needs to
just
be
just
sort of
just to
like,
add to that, I
yeah,
think so to be present and active on it, but with for me that means without actually using it the way most people use it.
mm,
So what I mean by that is like, you need to appear as though, and you need to be somewhat active in terms of posting and updating and all of those things. But when it comes to actually spending time on social media, I think it's been pretty proven at this point that that's not mentally healthy. And I think that there's a certain amount of that could be motivating in the sense of like, oh, this is a new artist I just discovered. What are they up to? How are they doing that? Getting inspiration. But then if it kind of crosses that line, there's this kind of perfect place where
balance.
you're
Yeah.
yeah, where you're motivated and you're using it in a good way because it's this incredibly powerful thing.
Sorry, we had a bit
We
of
had a
a
blip.
we had a blip in the recording. So, what were you saying? The last like
Just the last.
yeah, the last bit there.
Yeah, just that it's this incredibly powerful, potent tool that we can really help us, but it can also really harm us. So I think creating really good boundaries with how we use it. So having that presence if you want to be having that presence, but also limiting the time you're actually on the apps.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, on to the last but not least point that we'd like to touch on today before we
So
wrap it up.
organized.
I
So
try.
organized.
I really try to be
See, this is a
organized.
good example of what to do.
No, it's not. I mean, one day,
My
I mean,
podcasts go all over the place. We're like
yeah,
talking about, and then I have
yeah.
to, it's like an hour and a half. I have to like edit down.
Well, okay, just small parenthesis here, but
There you
outside
go.
the whatever. Francois and I, we did I think, a year of podcasting before we actually like podcasted, and we like realized like, we talked about this on Monday. I was like, because he was like, oh, let's just post it. Like, it doesn't matter. I was like, no, I don't feel comfortable if we like flip
Yeah.
flop all over the place. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's good. Like,
No,
actually,
and that's on brand with what we're talking
yeah.
about.
But like, actually, I listened to some podcasts, and there are so many different types. I was like, it really doesn't matter. But anyways, yes, the third point, things that may benefit us as musicians that are not necessarily related to music. So, for me, I like to meditate a lot. Like, I do it at least 10 minutes a day. Most of the times 20 minutes a day. So one session of 10 minutes before I begin my practice. And then when I go to bed, it can be like 5 a.m. I'm still going to meditate before I go to bed. It's just, that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I like doing stretching. I like doing a lot of simple yoga poses. And then I just love working out, like not gym working out. I swim a lot. And I think it's super beneficial as I get older. It's like an increasing theme for me to like just be in shape and be the best version of myself. So that,
Hell yeah.
yeah. So that, there's a lot of things, but those are the things that come to mind right now. I'm going to pass it over to Marlena.
All right. So yeah, I think we bonded pretty early on like I remember being like, you journal? And you were like so surprised.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
because I do a journal. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
You're like,
I forgot
I
that.
journal?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, so Riccardo like journals extremely
I've been doing it
diligently.
for like 14 years, I
Yeah.
want to say. I have like a whole
It's
library.
it's fantastic.
the-
And it's fantastic because, you're going to go back and like be able to see like that consistency. Okay. Consistency is a massive theme for me because it does not come naturally for me. And I'm constantly working on consistency in every facet of my life. If I decide to do something, again, like you said, with meditating, it's just 10 minutes a day. So, I also have a meditation practice, always looking for more consistency, but I'm constantly learning and trying to be mindful and present and drawing on some inspirations that I have from Buddhist traditions that I've been following for quite a few years now. So that we do have that in common. The journaling, for me, it's more when I feel like I have a lot kind of built up inside, I will sort of let it go by journaling. So that I can say from the times that I have done that consistently, that has been like life changing. Like you feel completely different. It's like this cathartic cleansing ritual.
I've never felt that when I journal.
No? Okay.
No.
So what do you feel?
I just enjoy the fact of seeing like a pattern, right? So like,
Oh my God.
like,
Your brain works in such mysterious ways.
like, because
Holy,
like,
this is proof that everyone is living a completely different
yeah,
reality.
well, like I'll just write, like if I want to like write something special on it or whatever. But I think the special thing for me is the longevity of it, right? So I'll look back in my journal and I'll be like, oh, this week I went to bed consistently at like 2 a.m. I wonder what the hell I was doing. Oh, I was probably like procrastinating. And then I was like, okay, so next week my goal is to like do a half hour earlier. And then like I see the progress and then I like optimize and then I keep going and I like optimize. So like really for me, it can be that, but
like
really,
behavior patterns.
yeah. And like I always write the date and the time. And then I also notice by the color and the calligraphy.
Like yeah, your handwriting.
Handwriting, if I'm like very tired, I'm feeling kind of indifferent.
Wow, like, that's so interesting. Okay.
Like I write it by hand. I think like when you write by hand,
for sure. Oh, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are benefits, but it's more of like a log thing, and it's very interesting to. And this is kind of, to be honest, I thought it was like the podcast is kind of like a log for me because like I get to listen to myself in different versions, and like it's not just for me, guys, but like it's also interesting to see like my improvement, how I can optimize it, how other people react to my thoughts, and how I grow as a person. So, anyways, that's Me.
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, so I learned something about you just there. Okay. Yeah, no, that's not how I can see why that would be really beneficial though. You're kind of you're tracking where you were. I also think it's very interesting like in the, let's say in the span of your life. I mean, how moving and special is it to be able to go back to a certain year in your life? I mean, can you imagine? Like you have all these,
Yeah.
let's say these all these moleskin journals, and then you're able to be like, where was my head at in 2017,
Yeah.
or what, wherever, and you can learn so much about yourself, and be able to see yourself from almost an outside.
Most of the time, it's just funny. Like, 'cause
Yeah,
I'm like, what the heck was I writing? And I struggle to like read, and then I'll be like, some years I was really diligent of writing the song that I was listening to while I was writing, and then
wow,
I listened to that song, and it brings me back so much, and
fantastic.
yeah, it's really special. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, you're talking about journaling, and
Yeah, so journaling and meditation, like I'm picking up on what you said, was those are fantastic. And I feel like there's some people who, for them, the meditation thing, it doesn't connect. They don't feel spiritual. They don't see the world that way. And that's okay. You know, if even if it's not a spiritual practice for you, it could be a practice in mindfulness, concentration, increasing your concentration. There's all sorts of secular meditation teachers that are looking at it very much from a neurological standpoint, neuroscience standpoint. There's lots of science pointing now to the benefits of mindfulness meditation and all of that. So if it's not spiritual for you, it could be something else. It could be a tool. Though I shudder at that thought, because for me it is a very like much more kind of spiritual practice. But
okay.
I know from talking to other people that not everyone sees it that way, and that's
Yeah, for
totally
me
okay.
it isn't. Like for me,
There you go.
like I use it again. See,
You're tracking yourself.
People who know me on this podcast are like, Jesus, man, what the hell's up with this dude? But like, I'm just like, okay, if I'm able to set aside 10 minutes per day for myself, then that means that I'm disciplining myself, and that discipline can be like paralleled to other things. So it teaches me how to be like consistent on something that I don't particularly enjoy. Because sometimes
Totally.
I'm sitting there, I'm like moving, like I refrain from moving when I meditate. Like I try not to move at all. And then I'm like, okay, so what I'm doing now is like I'm lifting weights with my brain. Like I'm
Oh, and that's exactly, and it can be so many things at once, like however, there's no question that there's benefits to it. And however you want to look at it, whether it's religious, whether it's spiritual, whether it's, more on the lines of what you're saying, it's both and all of those things at the same time, I think. Yeah, physical exercise, again, consistency is key for me. I don't do it enough. I do love yoga. I love going for walks. That can be kind of a nice balance between, it's kind of you can kind of marry the meditation and the physical together.
Oh yeah.
Like I go for, like the mindful walks, or if I'm walking my dog and I'm listening to a podcast or music, or I'm just kind of focusing on the sound of my, feet in the crunchy snow or whatever, and I'm just walking and breaking a bit of a sweat, especially if I have a heavy coat on and I'm going at, a faster pace, and just kind of getting in a focused, peaceful zone. And often a lot of realizations come to you, I find, when you're moving. Like I did this when I was preparing for my graduate recital too. I would listen to my repertoire as I was walking. Or if you're just stuck, mentally, like you don't know what to do about a situation, or, you have a big decision that you need to make, things like that. And then you go for a walk, and sometimes things just come to you that way. I also find like having a hobby, having something that you can do for fun.
Totally.
That
Totally. Hobbies
because
are so
unfortunately, I mean, for most of the world, making music is a hobby.
Yeah, that's like
and a source of
right?
joy. For us, sometimes it's definitely still a source of joy, but also stressful. And I won't speak for you, but I see it as my work, and so it's no longer, unfortunately, something I do for fun.
Yeah.
Though I do still try and have those days where I'm like, let's just play through this for fun. And those are great. But I think having something that you don't have to be good at. For me, like during high school, I did darkroom photography. That was super fun. Podcasting is that for me. I don't put pressure on myself of being good at podcasting. I just kind of do it because it's fun. Because I learn from it, because I'm giving other people something that they can learn from. And so just whatever speaks to you, like something that's fun that you're either creating or you're doing, that, yeah, I find
Just for
like
fun,
just for fun, but like it maybe not like watching TV, like something that you're like creating, so that like it's also giving you a sense of fulfillment, like you're, at least for me, that's helpful. Not that there's anything wrong with watching TV, but
you could like creatively watch all the episodes of Seinfeld and then like, write reviews. Like,
you could, you're like, I'm gonna write
analysis
reviews
of Kramer and his
exactly
mental disturbances.
But
yeah, that's that sums it up for me. There's so many things that you could do outside of your work or your profession, outside of music, that are just beneficial. Like at some point in time, you need to switch gears and like go into a different direction so that the other area could just get distracted a bit. Like you want to
unstick yourself.
Yeah. So, anyways, today, just to do a brief review and talk about any conclusions about what we've spoken about. I know I'm
Riccardo's swiftly wrapping up.
Yeah, like let's stay on time. And this is not like an end all be all podcast. I'd be more than happy to have Marlena again on the channel. Anytime, you're welcome, and Oscar too. Oscar is pretty vocal.
I know. I'm so sorry about that.
I think he was approving of the meditation. He kept on like wailing while we were talking about meditation. At any rate,
whenever I try and do yoga, he clambers on top of me.
So at any rate, we spoke a bit today about being a proactive musician. What does that entail? Obviously, having a bit of foresight, going to get stuff before it even happens, and sort of be reflected on that, and think about what is going to happen or what could possibly happen. I think it's a good skill to have, not just for music, but really anything. You predict, you kind of work yourself into being a little of a time teller, I guess. The second one is social media. I think you guys could see that it was very vague. There's a lot of different things that we could do, but I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the end, you just want to be genuine and yourself with how you're going to use your media so that it works.
Yeah, or not. If you want to just treat it like a tool, what I mean is like if being genuine is part of what you want to, and personally it is for me what I want to be in the world, right? But if you just want it to be like the face of your company and have and keep your privacy is golden, and it's swiftly disappearing. So people who there's this trend, people really like going and exposing everything about their lives. If that feels good to you, go for it. But also, like, it's okay if it's not. You can keep things private. I think you don't need to expose everything about your life to have a successful operation.
Yeah, that is true. I agree with that. And lastly, but not least, we talked about things outside of the realm of music. So we talked about yoga, journaling, meditation, exercise. I can't stress enough importance on like exercise. Dopamine, go get it. Go outside, go for a run in the snow and get all wet and like.
Doesn't need to be the gym.
No, you don't need to just be pumping iron. Like I love getting like super exhausted and lost for a breath, not just like be built like a tank. I don't know, that's just me.
Of course I am, but
so,
it's not enough, people. I like to tease
going.
Riccardo a lot, as you can see.
Going back on track. No. So at any rate, bottom line, guys, stay active.
Yeah.
Be creative. Get hobbies, and be curious. Be like really curious about stuff. Don't be afraid to ask questions about anything, really. Ask questions, because with the right question can have, just that special answer or path of action that you've been waiting for. So
here.
For me, I don't have much more to say.
Mhm.
Marlena, do you have anything to add on today's themes?
No, no, that was great. I'm so grateful that you asked me to be a part of your project. And yeah, it's very cool what you're doing. I'm excited to always talk to fellow musicians who are also doing podcasting. It's very cool. It's a very neat medium.
Great. So thank you
Hmm.
guys. See you all very soon. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you.